Well, hello everyone. This is John Drummond, Applications Engineer with Chint Power Systems America. I want to thank you for joining the webinar today. I'll be your host and moderator, and I'm joined today by Peter Shung, our Director of Product Management with CPS, who will be sharing the CPS TotalBOSS concept, your sole or one-stop shop equipment provider from PV array to high voltage substation for utility scale solutions. A bit of housekeeping before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be archived on the CPS website. All attendees are muted and in listen-only mode. There is a go-to webinar interface likely docked at the right side of your screen. You may enter questions you have during the presentation, and we'll be sure and leave some time at the end for Q&A. Today, Peter's going to be talking about CPS utility scale solutions, that'll improve system design, reduce downtime losses, and reduce O&M costs. But before we get into that, I'd like to give you a little brief intro as to who is and who we are at CPS America. Chint Power Systems America, or CPS, is a worldwide inverter manufacturer. Here in North America, we're focused on the three-phase string inverter markets in the commercial, industrial, and small utility scale segments. We have a market-leading #1 share position in those markets, and since 2012, we've shipped over 3.8 gigawatts of three-phase inverters into the U.S. Chint Power Systems is just a small division of a larger, diverse energy company called Chint Group. Chint Group is a global company, about $8 billion in revenue, publicly traded, and has been in operation for over 30 years. One of Chint Group's strategic initiatives is the growth of the business in North America. And Chint Power Systems has certainly been a big part of that. We pride ourselves on excellent local service. We have a technical support staff of 22 application engineers and field service personnel all across the U.S. and 7 sales account managers that are here to support you and your projects. We originally invested in an R&D facility in Texas in 2009 that now serves as both an R&D and a service operations center. We have a Los Angeles area-based logistics and distribution center, Bay Area sales and marketing, and of course, team members based around the country to serve our customers. CPS is built on a couple of things. First is value. When we think about value, we think about cost, we think about performance and bankability. And of course, to be successful in the industry, you have to be reliable. And we feel best in class in that category. We pride ourselves on service on the front end of sales, engineering support, all the way through logistics and order fulfillment, and service for the life of the product. This is our promise to you, the customer. Well, C&I has been the bulk of our business to date. We've also done a number of utility or large-scale projects with various EPCs ranging from 10 to 20 megawatts in size. These projects were installed in the New York ISO, New England ISO, Midwestern ISO, and in PJM territory, and used a mix of our 1,000 and 1,500 volt string inverter products. Before we continue, I do want to pause a bit and submit a poll to the audience. So if you wouldn't mind taking a quick poll, which inverter manufacturers are your default choices for utility scale projects? I'll give it a little bit of time here so people can make their choices. Do appreciate everyone joining today. All right. Going to close the poll just in a few seconds. So if you need to make a choice there, go ahead. All right. Coming up on a minute, so I'm going to close out the poll. Do appreciate you participating in that. Okay, now I'd like to introduce Peter Shung, who will be sharing some of the challenges of central inverters, the benefits of string inverters, and the CPS TotalBOSS concept for utility scale projects. Peter is currently the Director of Product Management at Chin Power Systems, or CPS America. Prior to joining CPS, Peter worked for the solar inverter manufacturer Huawei, also at the large-scale solar project developer Sun Edison, and Eon Climate and Renewables as an electrical and solar engineer. When Peter is not working, he enjoys spending time with his wife and his 5-year-old daughter, who loves Taekwondo. And with that, I will pass it over to Peter.
All right, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. So here's what we want to talk about today. Basically, challenges of central inverter and benefit of the string inverter and the CPS, of course, CPS TotalBOSS solution. So I think the conversation between central and string has been going on for a while, and momentum really started to gain on the string inverter quite a few years ago. Some interesting data I want to share with the audience is, although central inverter has been the default for utility scale project in North America for a long time, worldwide, the sales of a string inverter has surpassed central since 2017. So it's interesting how the customers in other continents are really quickly adapting to string inverters. So here's a very graphic representation of central and string. Central is high AC capacity in megawatts usually, and usually shipped in container sized, and it's very heavy. You'll require a crane to lift and install on site. Versus string inverter, usually what we're discussing is something like a metal box, and usually capacity is in kilowatts, 100, 125, and the sizes of it we can compare to a barbecue cooler, and it's very lightweight and requires there are a lot of various definition what counts as string inverter. There is no definition of what really is string inverter, but my personal definition has always been you really need to be two-man lift to be categorized as string inverter. So if you need a crane or special equipment to lift your equipment, then you're kind of belong to the central category. So that's always my rule of thumb. So here are some challenges that facing the current utility scale industry is on the procurement side for central inverter. Lead time is very long. So central inverter is more similar to a transformer where you're made to order, and the lead time is 3 to 4 months long usually. And when you're EPC, when you buy inverter from one company, transformer from another, and cable from the third party, so there's always a nightmare for the project managers. So there's always a lot of finger pointing when there's a problem, and then scheduling delivery. So a lot of problems when it comes to procurement and construction. Right? So that's the current challenges of the utility scale solar industry. And another challenges regarding more of the system design and construction is the system size constraints, because these central inverters are usually the default choices of utility scale central inverter are usually 3 to 4 megawatts. So if your project size is 21.5 megawatts, then you might run into a little problem. And also because they have usually very limited number of MPPTs, meaning they're busing all the DCs together, it is less ideal for reducing losses, especially for the bifacial modules, which is gaining popularity these days. And of course, as the picture shows, sometimes even 2 cranes are needed for lifting these 3 or 4 ton equipment. So I personally consider the O&M as the most value added for a string inverter, and therefore the most challenging part of the central inverter category. Yeah. So usually for central inverters, you require really highly trained specialists. Most of the time, you require someone from the central inverter vendor to repair or fix problems when the problem occurs. And usually require very special equipment, including the really heavy personal protective equipment, PPE. I call it a spacesuit. Especially when you open the DC side, very, very large DC currents going through those cabinets. One of the other issues that I hear very often is the spare parts management for central inverter. So when you own a fleet of central inverter, you basically own a library of spare parts. And each spare part has a different environmental requirement for a store and a different shelf life, right? So you're basically operating a warehouse at that point. Very, very inconvenient for owner operators. And of course, there are issues related to high losses. When you have one single unit failure, you have a minimum of 3 megawatts going out of operation. So sometimes, and most of the time, the downtime is very long for those equipments. So on the other side of the fence, considering string inverters are very smaller in sizes. Manufacturing process are very automated. So usually we stock the units to order. We don't have to. So it's the short time is much shorter. The lead time is much shorter. So usually it's 6 to 8 weeks. And for CPS TotalBOSS solution, we have a unique value proposition which we'll go into much deeper. You can actually as CPS to produce all your electrical EBOS items. So one vendor for all your service call and one vendor for all your procurement problems, right? So one person that will be in charge of all your EBOS equipment. In terms of the system design and construction, string inverter obviously because it's small, it's more granular, it's more flexible for design. So if your project size if your land is limited and your project size is not a whole number, then string inverter can definitely help you. Of course, the smaller sizes also contributes to low losses. So one inverter failure may just be 125 kilowatts of loss instead of 3 megawatts. And of course, because of the fact that string inverters offers more MPPT per utility block, it will combat mismatch losses much better, especially again on the bifacial side, which is popular nowadays. So with a small and lightweight inverter, the obvious advantages, it's much easier to replace. And we even challenge our customer to not repair because it's such a hectic task to repair something in the field. If something that goes wrong, we just replace it instead of repairing it. And obviously can be lifted by 2 people, and there's no crane that's required to replace these equipment. So here's continuing with the O&M discussion, which is the primary advantage of string inverters compared to central. The repairs, which is basically replacement, can be done by a local electrician instead of a technician or inverter specialist that's required by central inverters. And I think in this part, CPS went one step further. We designed something that's you can actually slide in and slide out the units without having to having to remake the cable and disconnect the cable and make the termination again. So we'll go into that more deeper in the later slides. So no special equipment is needed. You just need workers, 2 people, and obviously some basic tools. No need for special technicians. So again, I mentioned the CPS separate wire box. We'll go into that later in the slides. And low losses for string inverter. So obviously shorter downtime to replace or repair. You don't have to wait for the inverter vendors to show up to fix your machines. You can hire local electrician Bob to run over and swap out inverters. Obviously, as mentioned before, small sizes means smaller loss of power, right? And on the O&M management side, actually, now that you can actually wait and see if now that your failure is not impacting your revenue that much, you can actually schedule your service instead of having to run over there right away. So it's much easier and more efficient as far as O&M management point of view. So here's a nice summary table between the central and string inverter on three aspects: the physical, time and labor, and risk. Now, central inverter usually require really flat ground because of the civil workage required for central inverter, but string inverter usually just mount on a stick, right? And of course, site access is more important because you need a 18-wheeler truck to truck the heavy equipment over to the site. For string inverter, you can use a hand truck, you can use something much lighter to lift. So of course, you need crane to lift central, and you need 2 men to lift the string. You mount the central inverter on the skid, and for as far as string inverter goes, you mount it on piles. Also, central inverter, although there's less units, but usually takes a long time to commission them and installing them. Yeah, and string inverter usually requires, although there are more units, it's much easier to install them and commission them. So it takes less time. Of course, the risk of failure is much higher for central versus string per our discussions earlier. So this is a kind of summary table for all the things we discussed earlier. All right, so how to design with a string inverter is a question that many people have asked, because people in the utility industry have been so used to designing the system with central inverter. Now, when they think about string, they think about PV modules, string inverter, panel boards, switchgear, and transformers, all the things that is very common in the C&I scenario. So people tend to, the capex tend to go up when you factor all these equipment in, right? So that design has been optimized and evolved over the years. Now, what we're presenting today is our recommendation of how to design your power plant with string inverters. And the concept is quite simple. Instead of having all this equipment, you have just PV panel and inverter cluster. We'll explain what that is, and basically transformers, right? So the 3 components: the PV side, the cluster, and the transformer. That's what we are recommending for our customers as CPS TotalBOSS solution. On the PV string side, we have a special tool, what we call a Y combiner. It has to be used with Y connectors in the field with fuses, but potentially it does save anywhere between 30 to 40% of your cost on PV strings. So basically, you combine the 2 strings to 1 and go into our inverter with where our Y comb is installed in the inverter fuse holder of our inverter, and therefore you reduce the number of number 10s and number 12 cables, right? So that's basically the concept. You don't have to use it, but I think it does provide value as far as CapEx is concerned. So I think the other new things that we really started to do that's unique is the cluster concept. So we have went through many iterations on how we can save the most money, used to use string to design your project. And we found out that when you cluster the strings together, basically every 4 inverters, 4 125 kilowatt inverters together, your capex spending is the lowest compared to any other combinations. We try 2 per cluster, we tried 6 per cluster, and we of course tried all of the inverter centralized in the same location, which is traditionally been called virtual central. We tried all the combinations. We found out that this combination, actually the 4-in-1 cluster, is the most it offers the most savings. Now, so the cluster CPS actually offers a product that have everything pre-wired. So all the wires inside between the inverter and the AC combiner box will be pre-wired and delivered to site as it is. Of course, except for the piles. So the supporting piles is not included, but we can deliver the cluster to site as it is. CPS also offers the transformer and the communication cabinet. So that's something we're proud to offer to our customer as a total BOSS solution. So one vendor to contact for all your EBOS items. So we'll go into details for each component, but here's a kind of a summary. So what's available now is the wide string combiner, the 600-volt 4-in-1 AC combiner. That's the equipment that combines the output of 4 inverters, and of course the 2-3 megawatt AC transformers. It will be quickly available is the CPS Communication Gateway. That is basically the device that acts in between the plant controller and each individual inverters. Just we'll go into that much deeper in later slides. In some cases, we also offers AC recombiner, or some people like to call it a switchboard or panel board. So this we don't recommend it, but if they are necessary, we also offer this product. And what's really cool about CPS, the Chin Power mothership, is that we also make high voltage equipment. So we can offer all your substation equipment in your utility scale project if you choose. So meaning including main power transformer, CTs, VTs, regulators. Really, the Chin Power group makes a lot of equipment that can be used in North America. So here's the most basic building block of our TotalBOSS solution, which is the inverter. Inverter comes in 2 sizes, 125 and 100 kilowatts. And of course, we make them into a cluster. So for 125 kilowatt inverter, we have a 500 kilowatt cluster. So like I mentioned before. One other thing I want to talk about is the concept of trunk bus. So trunk bus is starting to become a default choice as well in the utility scale solar industry compared to the old combiner box solution in the central inverter solution. So CPS aim to cater service all of our customers, not just people who uses trunk bus or people who use combiner. So we actually designed 2 wire boxes, which is the part that receives the DC streams. So we can accommodate both scenarios. Like I said, the 2 wire box design is I think it's a unique value proposition from CPS string inverters. I don't think any other string inverter actually offers both solutions. So we have a distributed wire boxes, which is used for people who basically these wire box acts as combiner box. And then we also have a centralized wire box, which basically is used for people who want to use the trunk bus or people who like shows, they call it a BLA, big lot assembly. So that's what we're aiming for here. We're aiming for serving all the customers. So layout, which is really important because the cluster and the layout kind of go hand in hand. Well, we found out that in order to minimize the circuit length or cable pulling costs or installation cost, it is important to decide the position where you place the clusters, because it's a fine balance between the DC circuit length and the AC circuit length within the block. And we found this configuration or layout is the most effective when it comes to CapEx. So basically, you place the cluster, spread them out along the driveway, if you will. So so that it's not in the middle of the array, like a lot of people were considering when they want to minimize the DC cable length, but instead you increase the AC length. So, oops. So yeah, so in a 3 megawatt block, you have 24 units of inverters, 6 clusters, and usually you use a 3.3 MVA transformer. And we do recommend to place the clusters along on the edge of each subarray, and with transformer in the center. And this is the single line diagram of the design that we're proposing. And all the equipment in the red box is part of the cluster, so you don't have to do any wiring. Well, actually, sorry, you do have to wire on the field between the PV modules and inverter. But all the wiring between the string inverter and the AC combiner, it will be all done in off-site factory, and we ship the cluster to you on-site. And the output of these 500 kilowatt cluster goes directly to the secondary of the transformer. There are no AC recombiner or switchboard required for this design. Now, there will be challenges coming from AHJs or engineer of record about this concept because of the saving that we provide by eliminating the AC recombiner. So we hired a industry authority. His name is Bill Brook. He personally supports this design as far as NEC compliant, and we hired him to write a white paper for us to kind of back this design. So it is available, and we can always have Bill talking directly to HJ if there's any issues. So that's something I want to mention. Also, when the second design that we're recommending is when people want to use the trunk bus, which is very popular again. It makes more sense if all the inverters are in a centralized location. So this is the layout what we were recommending when people choose to use trunk bus. So basically it becomes the virtual central concept. But the cluster is still available in this scenario. So 6 clusters per block, per 3 megawatt block, just like the first choices. And like I mentioned before, besides the trunk bus, if there is a need to install an AC recombiner or a switchboard, that equipment is also available by CPS. So some more details about the CPS string inverter. It does, that we just knew, it does support up to 1.87 DC-AC ratio, but just for the 100 KTL machines. If it's the 125 KTL, it's still 1.5. We think those applications are going to be more rare for such a high DC-AC ratio, but we can accommodate it, but just for the 100 KTL inverter. It does have PLC communication, and also you can choose to have 15 amp or 20 amp fuses installed in our wire boxes. So there's a choice. Please make sure you select the right fuse sizes based on the modules that you're using. There's 20 strings per inputs, so 40 fuses positions in the wire boxes. It is Rule 21 UO 1741 SA compliant. We do supply central and distributed wire boxes, so please make sure you pick the right one for your preferences. Also, we do have the inverter headroom, kVA headroom. So our 100 kilowatt will produce 111 kVA, and our 125 kilowatt will produce 132 kVA, which comes in handy when there's a very strict reactive power requirement by the utility company. Saves you a lot of money without having to use a capacitor bank. Of course, low weight, 2-man lift, less than 130 pounds. So here's some details or drawings for the cluster. Like I mentioned before, this is a 4-inverter and 1 AC combiner combination. Everything's wired up, everything's ready to go. We ship the whole units to the job site. The only thing we have to do is mount the piles onto the ground, and then we can drop the cluster onto the piles for mounting. Of course, the CPS Communication Enclosure, so just go a little deeper on this. The communication enclosure will receive the commands from the utility plant controller. The plant controller usually sends signal via fiber optic. So our communication is equipped to receive fiber optic cables, and our flex gateway, which is included in this communication enclosure, will broadcast those commands to all the inverters. So the advantage of that is the plant controller does not have to communicate to each and every individual inverters. So for a 40 megawatt site, that's 1,000 almost 400 inverters. So that won't be necessary. Basically, they only communicate to about 13 communication boxes, and those communication boxes broadcast signals to the inverters. So that's the concept. And 4-in-1 AC combiner, that is the equipment that combines the 4-inverter output within the cluster. It is NEMA 4X, and it does have 4 breakers in it, which interestingly, the brand of the breaker is called NOARC, which is another sub-brand of the Chen Power Group, our mothership. So actually the same company. So we are, again, the concept is TotalBOSS, one vendor for all your electrical needs. It is UL certified and it is NEMA 4X. So kind of goes into a little deeper on the wide comb concept. Again, if you look at the graphics on the lower left, so 2 PV strings, you basically combine the 2 strings in the field with a Y connector. So this Y connector is not supplied by CPS. You can purchase them from TotalBOSS or Shoals, any one of those accessory companies. But they do have to come with fuses. So the PV modules facing side have to be fused. So, and then after you can combine the 2 strings, you have, instead of having 2 sets of DC circuit, you have only 1 set of DC circuit going back to the wire box of the inverter. So the point is obvious, and then that's where our wide comb is being installed. And then, so instead of having 40 sets of PV cables, you only have 10 sets of cables. So a lot of saving on cables, the number 10 and number 12s. Yeah. So again, the ACB combiner, or what people like to call switchboards, it is 600 volt AC, which matches the output of our inverter. And we can go anywhere from 1600 to 400 amps. So again, we think we do not need this equipment to construct our TotalBOSS solution, but we understand sometimes AHJs are not the easiest or the most flexible people in the industry, and it's their way or the highway. So we just want to make sure that we do offer this equipment to our customers. Our AC recombiner will be at minimum 20% lower than the market price of the other vendors. That I have a personal experience with. So I know that this equipment can be very expensive, sometimes up to $35,000 or $40,000. We can offer much better price for this equipment. But again, we don't recommend it, and we think we do believe that it does comply with NEC without this equipment in front of the transformers. So NV transformer is something new that we started offering to our customer last year, and it's gaining more and more popularity. Again, the concept is really simple. You want one person to be responsible for all your equipment, and much easier to manage for both procurement and construction management. So we do offer power transformer. You can choose between FR3 oil or mineral oil. There's a big difference in cost just by choosing oil. 2 to 3 megawatts. That's our current offering so far. We do 2, 2.5, and 3 megawatts, which is 2.2 MVA, 2.75 MVA, and 3.3 MVA. Right, so there's a little bit of room for reactive power, and the high voltage is not limited to 34.5. So of course there will be price delta if the medium voltage lower, or 13.8 or 13 kilowatts. Yeah, so it's a pad mount, pretty standard transformer for North America. Here, I want to mention briefly about the substation equipment. So CPS Chin Power is an interesting company. We majorly sell inverters and breakers in North America, but our mothership carries really a variety of line of products, including the high voltage substation equipment. So we're very comfortable and very experienced to become your substation equipment vendors as well. And we believe we can offer the same equipment at a much lower cost. So it includes the main power transformer, your 50 or 100 megawatt transformer, high voltage CTs and VTs, high voltage disconnect, circuit breakers. We do actually offer GIS, which is gas insulated switchgear. That's actually one of CPS specialties. Again, of course, also the medium voltage disconnect, as well as medium voltage switchgears. So we offer this fleet of substation products for our North American customers, all per the North American standards. So I kind of want to shift gear and talk about the O&M side of things. All the previous slides are more focused on CapEx and installation. So like I said, the core advantage of string inverter, and especially CPS string inverter, is really the O&M side of things. So compared to Central, which, like what all the things we mentioned before, category 3 PPEs are required to do maintenance. That is periodic and corrective maintenance, and also very extensive product management, very extensive preventative maintenance procedures when you deal with central inverters. So I was looking at our competitors' manuals, and there's actually 17 tasks you have performed as periodic maintenance, and all of them have, some you do once a year, some you do once a quarter, and some you do once every 2 years. So you have to. It's really intensive work to maintain such a inverter fleet. And we've seen again and again, by lesson learned by many of our customers, Secon or GE, those guys who offer large central inverter solutions. It is very important to maintain those. Otherwise, when the central inverter company goes out of business, it will break down very fast. Of course, very expensive and time-consuming corrective maintenance requires a crane to replace them. What I talked about before, the spare parts library, filters, fans, capacitor banks, IGBTs, inductors. That's if you have them. Imagine you have to find an IGBT that works for the Secon inverters. Nowadays, it's going to be very difficult. So, and for those central inverter companies, they basically come at a lower cost per watt price on the CapEx, but they do charge a very expensive maintenance package most of the time. So that's that's a choice we have to make. Do we want a low initial capex spending, or do we want to spend a little more money up front and have a much lower cost for O&M in the future? And most of the time for Central Inverters, because they're so specialized, they do require inverter manufacturers technician or very, very highly special or highly skilled workers to work on those inverters. In comparison, for string inverters, and especially CPS string inverters, the PPE requirement is much lower, and it's very limited PM, periodic maintenance. Basically, we require just torque check and clean the fans and filters. And we have one spare parts, that is the power head for the inverter. So there's no management on the spare parts. We also offer to limited customers 99% uptime guarantee. If you're interested, you can contact me, but we don't offer to all the customers, but we do offer to limited amount of customers. We'll talk about that later. And of course, the easy corrective maintenance. Replace the power head, and it can be performed by a local electrician and does not have to wait 2 weeks for the inverter vendors to show up. Of course, by having the separable wire box design, which actually I'll show in the next slide, there is no cable termination or disconnection that's required for this concept. And here's the one I'll show you. So this is the racking of the inverter, and so this is the power head part, which is where all the power electronics lives, and the capacitor bank and all these components. That's easier to go. And this part is the wire box. So basically, what you do is when a failure happens, 90% of the time it is in the power head. You would slide out the power head instead of having to disconnect all the wires in the wire box, right? So, and it's 4 screws to unlock those 2 parts, and 4 screws to 4 screws to mount the each box onto the rack, and 4 screws to separate the boxes. So only 8 screws total when you need to slide out the power head away from the wire box. And I want to talk about 99% availability guarantee a little bit more. So for limited amount of customers, we offer or the preconditions, you have to buy our Flex Gateway or our communication enclosure, which give us visibility into the system. We do offer 99% availability guarantee, and we basically, the concept is we become your inverter O&M service people, right? So you no longer have to service your inverters. We become the people who service your inverters. So that's the general concept of 99% uptime availability guarantee. And there are many different services packages that's provided by the CPS service team. I probably did not mention that before, but CPS, as a Chinese company, invested a lot of money into our service capability in North America. We actually, John mentioned that we have our service center is in Texas, which is easy location to reach anywhere in the country. But we do offer a lot of services remotely and as well as on site. So with the Flex Gateway or communication or CPS ComBox, the type of services we can offer remotely includes IV curve tracing and remote commissioning, firmware upgrades, restart or power cycle, and remote arc fault clearing, right? So all these services we can offer by just having our communication equipment installed. So, and also we want to kind of recap on everything we talk about. Basically comes down to this really simple equation, which is what LCOE is. So we strongly believe that CPS TotalBOSS solution will really help you to decrease your LCOE instead of just offering savings on CapEx. So LCOE is a simple equation of CapEx plus OpEx divided by the total energy it produces over the lifetime of the project, right? So what we're promising is we can promise equal CapEx with any solution or any competitors. And we also offer remote commissioning, which really reduces CapEx cost as well. So that's what we can offer on CapEx. That's our promise on the CapEx side. In the operational OpEx side, with everything we talk about, like the minimal amount of periodic maintenance, very low cost for corrective maintenance, one spare parts to manage, one wrapped around warranty for all the electrical equipment, and remote IV curve tracing. All these advantage on the operational cost. It will significantly reduce your OpEx. So you reduce a lot on your numerators. And on the denominators of this equation, which is the energy yield, with our uptime guarantee, you basically reduce a lot of your losses due to downtime. And of course, you have 24 MPPTs per block, per 3 megawatt block, compared to 2 to 3 MPPTs per 3 megawatt block by our competitor. You can reduce a lot of mismatch losses so that your energy yield goes up. So your whole equation, LCO equation, goes down. So we can help you to win more projects as you put your bid in for projects. So that will conclude my presentation today. Of course, you can contact us by following the 2 following emails, myself and the CPS sales. And I'd like to use the remaining time for answering any questions the audience might have. So I'm going to give the table back to John.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Thanks for the presentation. Let me make sure that I'm sharing my screen. Sorry, a little technical difficulty here. And make sure I'm in presentation mode. Last screen. Okay, so we did get quite a few questions. I apologize to the folks that were having a little bit of technical difficulty with the audio. We had a little bit of those either logging in or couldn't hear kind of questions, but thank you very much for your patience. And again, the webinar is being recorded, so if you did miss anything, you certainly can go back and review it. We will post the slide deck and an MP4 recording on our CPS website, and we'll follow up with the email to all the attendees with a link to that presentation. Okay, a few questions. One is, let's see, first question, Peter. What is your service network, and how can I trust that you'll be there to help with any technical questions?
Okay. I think, like I mentioned before, and John, you can help me with this. We have one of the most strong service team in the country. We have probably about 15 to 20 service guys all over the country that is hired directly by CPS. I think early on, when we started the CPS America business, we decided that service is one of the most important part that will make this business successful. Compared to our competitors who didn't make that decision, we invest millions and millions of dollars into our service team, and that's just our field service team, right? So we also have a call center, and as well as management and service engineers who handles all the technical issues. And of course, John and myself, we act as apps engineers that also offers not just pre-sales issues, but also we can handle all the post-sales or the service issues as well. So we have a very strong team that will support your project even after the sales is complete. So specifically, there's a hotline that opens you can always call our hotline as the initial first stop. And then, of course, apps engineers are available to talk about your issues as well. John, any other supplement notes you want to add?
Just that, that services are advantage. So we recently, as you mentioned, some new O&M support offers for availability. And this just kind of underscores our long-term commitment to our customers. Okay, we've got a few different questions around the transformer. So I may just fire them all away, and you can answer them, Peter. What is the MV transformer brand? Is it your own manufacturer, CPS, or other?
Yeah, so CPS currently in North America, we find it actually make more sense to work with a partner. So we do work with transformer company WEG, W-E-G. We could use our own CPS transformer, but we kind of calculated the cost with all the shipping and everything. Actually, WEG's cost is actually lower for our customer. So for medium voltage transformer, that is. So I want to make the differentiation between the medium voltage as the 2 to 3 megawatt transformer versus the main power transformer, which will be offered by CPS, not by WEG, coming from overseas, right? So we do work with a partner, which is WEG, and they do offer really good warranties, and which will pass through to our customers. But again, to our promises, you call us if there's any problem with all your equipment, including transformers, right? And we will deal with WEG. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and a couple of follow-up transformer questions. One is the 634.5 kV configuration, are there other configurations available to step up to, say, 1247 kV or 13.8? Are those available?
Yes, they are available. So the 600 to 34.5 is just an example. The medium voltage transformers are made to order. So as long as you send us the right specification, so there's two sides. They're made to order, so there's a long lead time for transformer, which is something that we can really fix. Just like Central Inverters, transformer do take a long time to make. So we like to. But thanks to the long cycle time of the utility scale project in this country, it usually is not a problem. You can send us the spec long enough for us to deliver the product on time. But yeah, so it is important that we receive the spec, and but we are not limited to 34.5 as medium voltage. We can do 12.47. We can do 13.8. We can also do all different variety of configurations. Y, delta, grounded Y, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
Okay, and a couple more follow-up transformer questions. Are they approved for CSA Canada? Is one question, and the other is, in your 4-in-1 combiner, are they combined before the transformer, or will the transformer have multiple lugs for multiple terminations on the low side?
Okay, so the first question we have to get back to you. I do not, I have to confirm with WEG if they have the Canadian certification for installation. So we'll table that one. The second question, sorry, John, remind me what the second question is again?
Yeah, sorry, it is, are the 4-in-1 AC combiners before the transformer, or will the transformer have multiple lugs or stabs for multiple terminations on the low side?
Right. So the ACB combiner is a part of the cluster, but in an electrical point of view, it is the part that gathers the output of 4 inverters, and one AC circuit will go into the secondary of the transformer. So I'm not sure what before the transformer means, but on an electrical standpoint of view, that's how they work per the single line diagram I show. And the way how the AC combiner output will connect to the transformer secondary is so on the transformer secondary for US PEM transformers, there's a connector where we call the spade, and the spade can actually receive 6 or more sets of cables coming in. So so I think that's what the audience is asking, is how this transformer is connected to each AC combiner outputs. But basically, the output circuit goes right to the space, which is the connector for the transformer secondary.
Okay, and I think one more transformer question. What are you seeing as far as lead times for 2020 on the transformers?
Yeah, so the lead time is getting very hard to manage as far as transformer goes. So all I can say is we still have some production availability left in 2020 or early 2021. So it is first come and first served basis. We will serve as well as we can, but they are limited. So I can share more about the capacity what we have, but yeah. So they're not. We won't able to satisfy all the customers, but maybe some customer will have to procure transformer from others if it's available. But they are getting more and more popular, and transformer capacity is becoming smaller and smaller. Production capacity, yeah.
Okay, and one more transformer question. This seems to be the hot topic. How is the warranty handled?
Yeah, so the warranty, like I mentioned before, will be passed through from WAG to from WAG to CPS to our customer. So the equipment, if the equipment need to be replaced, will be provided by WAG, but CPS will handle all the transactions between CPS and WAG. So for all practical purposes, you only have to deal with Chint as far as warranty.
Got it. Okay, and now we have an inverter question. Are your string inverters capable of bar at night or Q at night mode?
John, you want to take that one?
Well, the simple answer is no. Our string inverters cannot support bar at night mode. Simple as that. We don't have that function capability.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a few more, and we are coming up on the hour, so maybe we can answer one or two more questions, and then for the audience, we will be following up on all of your questions if we didn't get to it. Thank you so much. There are a lot of questions that came in. Let's see, I'm just trying to pick one. Some of these I think we've already answered. They're kind of duplicates. How about, oh, here's one. Do you have any options in the 4-in-1 combiner to provide an auxiliary power supply for a DAS system?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. We currently don't have an auxiliary power supply from the combiner box for the AC combiner. So what usually happens is the DAS system usually gets located around the transformer pad because you only need one DAS per block. So usually we mount, and these are all small equipment. So usually they just get mounted on a pile, basically the same kind of pile that we use to mount trackers and other equipment. So we don't, but CPS is a pretty flexible company, and if you present enough volume and we see the value that we provide to customer, it's always we can always modify our equipment. So we can talk about that if there's a special need.
Okay. Well, we've come up on the hour on our presentation. Again, I do appreciate everyone logging in and allowing us to share this presentation with you today. As mentioned, the webinar is being recorded and will be archived on our website, and we will follow up with each and every one of you on your questions, as well as a link to the published MP4 recording. So with that, we'll go ahead and end the webinar. Again, thanks so much for your attention, and we appreciate your business. And have a great day. Stay safe out there.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Peter. Take care, everyone.
Bye.